I am the jean jacketarian.
Howdy, Larkin Rose here. Going to do a rant about personalities, cliques, and movements, which are basically three things which I think mostly get in the way of people understanding concepts and truths, but they sort of slow it down and mess it up a little bit, but they don't actually prevent it, so whatever. So in any movement, you have the drama and the whole cult of personality routine where he's the leader. I listen to this guy. Well, I listen to this guy. No, that guy's no good. You should listen to this guy. Because of the tendency for people to follow people. They want somebody to either look up to or think is right about everything, or somebody to believe in, follow, whatever it is. Which is just sort of a part of human nature, but it's also sort of pathetic. But the end result is that so many people argue over individuals and personalities instead of over ideas. And actually, I'm glad this video gave me an opportunity to explain this jacket. This jacket is the first jeans jacket that I've worn or owned in 20-some years at least. I think I had one when I was like just barely a teenager. And this was made for me by a friend of mine. Thank you, Yakov. It's awesome. It was made for me entirely as a joke to make fun of the people who were already calling me jean jacketarian. First of all, they thought that was an insult. You wear jean jackets or jeans jackets. Like, why would that be an insult? Second of all, they were wrong about it. Now, this is the alt-right crowd, so they're not exactly brilliant thinkers or very observant. But there's an old picture of me that I used in various places wearing a light blue flannel shirt that somebody decided was a jeans jacket. And so, oh, you wear a jeans jacket, which I don't, until now. So this is the first jeans jacket I've owned in 27 years. But the reason I bring it up is because it's actually relevant, because when people look to individuals, we don't like that individual, we like this individual, like they're missing the point of, well, what are the ideas? What's the actual mindset of people? And if you look at human progress over time, a new idea gets to the point where nobody cares who introduced it or who first talked about it or who did the best job explaining it. Like today, the idea of ending slavery isn't anything in the U.S. It's like, well, that was gone ages ago. Most people have no idea the names of the people involved in the abolitionist movement, and it doesn't actually matter. I mean, good for them. It's good that they did that, and some of them said some great things, and it's worth quoting, and wrote some great treatises on it, like Frederick Douglass wrote a bunch of cool stuff. He was actually a slave and wrote a bunch of awesome stuff about it. So I'm not saying individuals can't contribute, but when the focus is individuals, that's a distraction, and in the long term, it totally doesn't matter. Like, does it matter today if people know who the main abolitionists were? No, not in the slightest, because, well, now slavery is done and gone, and everybody understands now it's evil, that it's evil. Even though back then, most of the world, or most of the U.S. anyway, most of the white people in the U.S., thought, well, this is just how it is, and it's natural, and so it must be okay, and it's legitimate. And a few people, white and black and all sorts of different groups, said, this isn't okay, this isn't moral, this isn't right, we really should end this. I'm sure some of the people who said that had lots of flaws and got other things wrong and had moral flaws and did nasty things, and some of them probably had lots of people going rah, 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 and then disappointed some people, and then they said, no, we should listen to this guy, he explains it better, and then they went running over to that guy. And in the long run, none of that matters. But when you have a I hate the whole idea of a movement as if there's this group of people and they represent freedom. Like, there are messengers. There's the truth, and then there are messengers. And the messengers can vary in like how well they explain the truth or how many things get wrong or whatever. But the truth is what matters. The messengers don't. And the idea of a movement is like, here's a bunch of people and we're doing a thing. Like, we're the thing that matters. this movement made up of these people is the thing that matters. No, it isn't. The idea is what matters. And if the idea is conveyed and spread and people understand it, obviously there is no need for a movement anymore. And I totally look forward to the day when movement and movement leaders and all that stupidity doesn't matter in the slightest because people understand self-ownership and non-aggression, and it's just a given. Just like today, slavery is bad is a given. You don't need leaders in the abolitionist movement anymore because it won. Like, it won over the mentality of almost the whole world that, yeah, slavery is kind of bad. But you watch this silly cult of personality thing where people are, and it goes in both directions. It can be positive or negative, where they're either, this person's so great, I love it, let's put this person on a pedestal, or let's tear them down off a pedestal and put this one up instead. And so people argue over, like, who's the better writer, who's the better leader, who's the better. And I sort of think, who cares? Like, if other people are doing a good job of conveying the ideas of freedom, outstanding. I don't care who they are. And if they say things I think are wrong, I'm going to come out and say, oh, I think you're wrong about that, or whatever else, because the ideas are what matter. And that's the thing, is if you can't distinguish between the ideas and the messenger, between the message and the messenger, then you fall into this stupid cult of personality thing, and you start saying, I want to agree with everything that guy says, or no, he said something wrong, now I want to shun him and say he's wrong about everything, instead of doing what rational, logical people have to do, which is say, almost everybody in the world is going to get some stuff wrong and some stuff right. Some people get lots of stuff right and a few things wrong, and some the other way around. But what you should be looking for is not a person or a group or an organization or a movement. You should be looking for the truth in everything from everybody. You know, the biggest boneheaded collectivist authoritarian twit every once in a while is going to say something true. And if it's true, okay, adopt it as part of what you understand is the truth. So, and there are different agendas, obviously, in the minds of the listener, where they're looking to somebody to follow or to believe in or to whatever. And I hate that whole thing, and I hate the notion of a movement as if the people are what matter. But it's also true in the minds of the speaker. Like, there are a bunch of people who will loudly say true things to get attention to themselves. And then there are other people, and I'm just going to say, including me, I intentionally try to get attention to myself so that I can then say things that I think are true and important, but not the other way around. Like, and you can see this when people shift gears and change their position based on, like every politician does. Well, it sounds like, put my finger to the wind, and it seems like the people now want to hear this. So I'm going to change my rhetoric so they'll like me. If somebody changes their position to follow what's popular, you know damn well they are saying stuff to get attention to themselves. The end goal is getting attention to themselves. The saying stuff is just what they think will achieve that. Whereas if somebody says the same thing over and over again, even when they're ignored and even when people hate them and everything else, and are consistent, say, here's what I believe, I think it's important, at least you know they're doing it because it's what they believe in, not just to get attention for themselves one way or another. And in the freedom movement, you can probably, I won't bother mentioning any names, but you can think of plenty of people whose position has floundered around all over the place, or for one reason or another, you can tell that they're about themselves first and foremost. And if they think the ideas sound good, they might use that, and they might say things that are totally true, and they might do a good job of going, rah, 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 here's a true thing. But if you can notice, is that person about himself or is it about the truth? Either way, it doesn't particularly matter, because you still have the job of distinguishing the true from the false and not deciding who to completely believe and who to completely dismiss. Why would you bother ever doing that all the way with anybody? Like, even somebody who's a total evil psycho bastard will still probably say 2 + 2 = 4, and it'll still be true. It won't not be true just because you butthead. And, even people I admire and think they said a bunch of great things also usually said something stupid here or there, something I totally disagree with. And I'm sure that's true of me. With it the other way around, everybody who follows my stuff has probably heard me say something they disagree with, or, at least to some degree, or something they totally hate me for, whatever. Who cares? I don't care. I don't care about the popularity contest. I do totally do things to get attention to me, because if people aren't listening to me, then me saying the message doesn't do any good. So I make videos and write books and this and that and the other thing, and you can say I was trying to get attention. But it's so funny to watch people project their own mentality onto other people, like the people who complain about celebritarians, which is a label they apply to anybody in the freedom movement or who advocates self-ownership and non-aggression, who's gotten any degree of an audience. Like, well, pretty many people listen to him. Well, then you're just a celebritarian, just because a number of people subscribe to a post or watch videos or something. And their resentment of people who have achieved that, just because they have achieved that, is totally a projection that that's how their mind works. That's what they focus on, is individuals and cliques and groups and organizations and movements instead of ideas. Because the people who care about ideas, if someone says something that's true and says it well, whether that person, nobody's ever heard of that person before and you just heard it, or 50 million people listen to him, you go, yeah, that's true, I agree, that's good. Good job explaining it, I agree. And I'm going to go express that truth to other people. I might even borrow the way you expressed it, because I think that works well. But you can see the distinction between people who think in terms of who's on my side, and who am I following, and who am I for, and who am I against, and the stupid little groups and cliques and stuff in the movement, which is why, for the most part, I've kept my distance from doing anything like an alliance with anybody. I'll go do events, and I'll, every once in a while I'll do something with somebody. Mostly I just do my own thing, because so quickly that becomes a thing about loyalty and, well, I have my ties to this and I can't betray him by saying this. The moment anybody gives me any hint that they want me to change the way I say something, just no, bye. Because if you want me to choose you over saying what I think, forget it. Now, if you can change my mind and actually make me think something different, or think I should explain it differently, or whatever it is, fine, that's outstanding. But when people want to get into groups, and this group, I've experienced this going back forever. The tax honesty movement is constantly full of, here's our group and we hate that group. Which side are you on? And I'm there going, I think you guys are right about this, and right about this, and wrong about that, and wrong about that. I think you guys are kind of obnoxious. You're right about this, and you totally got that wrong. I don't want to be officially affiliated with anybody other than me, because as soon as I'm affiliated with somebody, people are going to blame me for what you say. I can't control what you say. I just control what I say and what I think and what I believe and the way I do it. So it's sort of funny and sort of sad to watch how many people fall into the whole cult of personality thing and the group mentality of, this is the in-group and you guys are bad and blah, 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 instead of the ideas. And often their comments are just that. I like this guy better than that guy. Who cares? You just said nothing. Okay, you obviously you're allowed to express that, but you said nothing. There was no substance in there. And watch how people argue. Often their entire argument will be, well, you obviously haven't read enough. Fill in the blank. That's your argument, giving me homework, basically. And deferring to somebody else and basically saying, what I believe is, see this book over here or something. But why don't you say what you believe? You can say, if you want more information or to better understand it, I think this explains it well. But a lot of people, their entire arguments are, well, I agree with Hoppy on this. Hoppa. Whatever. I still don't know his freaking name. I don't care. He's a closet fascist. But they'll still pick names that they agree with. Well, I agree with this guy. Well, I agree with that one. Well, why don't you say what you actually think and discuss actual principles and logic and concepts and things like that, instead of like picking sides, because sides of something are sort of silly if you're talking in terms of people and groups. Because every single person, every single group of people everywhere in the world is fallible. They're going to get some stuff wrong. And they're probably going to get some stuff right. So who cares? Don't choose people. Like, the only person you should have complete alliance with is basically you, because unless you're a schizo, you're going to agree with yourself all the time. And it doesn't mean you can't refer people to, like, I'll quote famous people and cool quotes. And somebody else will say, well, what about their position on, like, I'll quote Thomas Jefferson. He was a slave owner. Yeah, that was evil and stupid of him. And when he expressed this, I think that was true. So I quote it as a good way to express some particular truth by somebody's people have heard of. Even that's silly, and I do it anyway because people respond to that. Oh, here's a quote by a famous person saying it. I actually think that's sort of ridiculous, but because people like that and they respond to it, I do that. Now, there are some people who actually think, like Frederick Douglass, it isn't just he thinks this too. He did a really good job of explaining a bunch of things, and his account of his life as a slave was really dang eye-opening. And I think anybody who believes in government should read it and see how many parallels there are. Anyway, flying off track here. But it's so, and we're coming up on Anarchapulco, which is awesome. It sounds like there's going to be 1,500 people there this year. Holy smokes. And somehow that event has managed to not fall into this disaster of cliques and groups and infighting and stuff. And I'm not even against the infighting. If the infighting is over substance and ideas, fight. Please fight. Don't pretend you're on somebody's side. Don't ignore differences and ignore mistakes and ignore errors just so we can all get along. Because that too is a symptom that you care more about people than about truth. To say, well, I'm not going to criticize this particular thing, or I'm not going to disagree with this thing that he said. I will go out of my way to disagree with some, freedom advocate if he says something I think is wrong, because to leave that unrebutted, to not say, hey, wait a minute, I think this is wrong, is basically to, give it approval by way of silence. So we're supposed to point that out. And if someday I come out and say something that you think is wrong, I hope you'll say you think I'm wrong. Not just go, well, I agree with a lot of what he said, so I'll let it slide. Don't let falsity slide. Don't ever let falsity slide. And that's the point, is if your priority is what group you're in, or your organization or people, you are going to, sooner or later, if that to you outranks the truth, you are going to betray the truth. And you can see that all over the place, not just in the freedom movement, but all over the freaking place, of people doing things and saying things that are wrong, and other people making excuses for them. I mean, the whole, I can't think of a more glaring example than the Democrats and Republicans, who will constantly righteously condemn the other party for doing exactly what they did a couple of years earlier when they looked the other way. Well, he's in our party, so we're not going to bash that. That is what you get. American politics is what you get when you care about individuals and personalities and groups and organizations and movements more than you care about the truth. So to hell with individual, like the whole cult of personality thing. That's stupid. It's pointless. Ideas are what matter. Conveying the truth is what matters. At the end of the day, what matters is whether you helped the truth get into other people's brains, whether they remember you for it or remember where it came from or where they read it or what video they saw, doesn't matter in the slightest. The goal is to help the other person to see something they didn't before. And if that's not your goal, sooner or later you're going to veer off track and just be an obstacle and get in the way of the people whose top priority is the truth.